Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Haley got in touch with me, she's one of my subscribers on this YouTube channel, to ask for a video regarding the world below. Now, as you will likely know by this point, if you buy a physical copy of the world below, whether it's on DriveThruRPG or whether it's via backer kits, I will link both below. You can basically order it in print on demand, or you could order a traditionally printed copy from backer kit. You can then send me your order details via MatthewDawkins.com and request a video of your choosing. I've been styling this as buy an RPG, get a video for free. And I intend to continue doing so because I get royalties from every sale of the world below, and I like receiving requests for videos, so it helps both of us. You get an excellent RPG, and then you get a video made. So, I'm really happy that someone has requested a video to do with the world below, if I'm quite honest. Most of the time the request is to do with the world of darkness, and while I do love making videos regarding the world of darkness as well, it is a subject I very rarely tire of talking about. It is refreshing to get a request regarding the world below too. So thank you very much for that, Haley. The love I have for the world below is probably greater than any other game I've worked on, including Vampire, Wraith, Curseborn. They came from. Maybe it's because it's still fresh in my mind. Maybe it's... No, you know what? In fact, it's because of the team on the world below. The artists and the writers who contributed to the world below did such a fantastic job. You see, I presented them with a concept, the thing that I had come up with on an episode of the Onyx Pathcast, and then I developed into a pitch, into a world bible, if you like. And everyone got their assignments, including me, and every writer had a different portion of the game to write, and they did it in concert with each other. There was a lot of coordination, a lot of cooperation, and communication in developing an RPG and writing an RPG is one of the most important things. And this team of authors was so communicative. Their ideas that were being battered backwards and forwards were so wondrous and fantastic and grim and horrific, because that's what the world below is. It's a mashup of exploration and wonder and survival and horror, and what happens when you blend the two together in a subterranean fantasy environment. All of these creators did such a fantastic job. I strongly recommend, if you are inclined, if you're a developer of RPGs, or if you want to pick up an RPG I haven't spoken about, head on over to DriveThruRPG, the World Below's page, which is linked below, and click on any of the author names, any of the artists' names, and check out other work by them, because they are brilliant. These teams were fantastic. Now, onto the subject of the video, because as much as I love crediting my peers, that wasn't what was requested, but they deserve it. Haley asked, well, she said, let's see if I can actually get the email. That would have helped, wouldn't it? Some kind of preparedness. I picked up a physical copy of The World Below and sent me the order details there. It looks absolutely fantastic. My request for a video is 3 starting story hooks for the World Below RPG. I think that would really help new people get into the game. Thanks so much for the video, Haley. Well, that was nice and simple, Haley. Thank you very much. And yeah, there are story hooks throughout the World Below RPG. There's loads of stuff that can set an adventure running. But I like the gauntlet you've thrown down. It's an excellent idea. And let's start with something that isn't too experimental. Let's start with the traditional story beginning. Your characters are new, fresh-faced. You're starting with the starting level of experience. You've just come out of character creation. Your characters are all going to emerge from one settlement or community. They may not be from there, but this is where you are emerging at the very start of the game. And what has happened? Why are you about to venture out as a party? Well, we can go with you've been trained together. Maybe you will work for the same guild, or maybe your parents or your mentors are friends with each other. But what I like in particular is this settlement has suffered badly in the last calm season. Calm season is when chaos storms rage around the world below and everyone hunkers down in their settlements until the storms stop. It's called calm because it allows people to focus on the internal business of a settlement, and with a sense of irony because everything outside the settlement walls is basically inferno as hell on earth. And the calm has abated, the chaos storms have drifted away, and the scouts from the settlement discover new tunnels have been opened up. Now, this is all subterranean, as you likely know. You will never visit the surface in this game, or certainly if you do, your lifespan will likely shorten. If you've seen Silo or read Wool, the first novel in the Silo series, you'll probably get a fair idea of what might occur if you decide to venture skyward. But these scouts have spotted new tunnels that have opened up throughout the world below, specifically one that is venturing out, jutting out from your settlement. Well, the settlement suffered horribly. A lot of the experienced hands, the veterans, maybe they got stranded at outposts, maybe they never made it back to the settlement in time. Maybe you are right now the best chance the settlement has to explore. Or maybe you're sacrificial lambs. This is going to be the first quandary that your characters are faced with. You will, in traditional RPG fashion, be given the mission of exploring this new set of tunnels and see where they lead. Find out what wonders can be found within it, and what nightmares as well. And the likelihood is there's going to be more nightmares than wonders. So, is it that you've been given a great honour? Is it that you are being sent as canaries to see whether the place is just a death trap? Probably a little bit of both. And that's something your characters have got to come to terms with. Maybe it will leave you feeling bitter towards the settlement you're setting out from, or maybe you will feel like you owed them because they looked after you during the calm season. This is you paying them back. Regardless, venture out you do. Now, I could end it there, but I don't think that's much of a story hook. That's basically just saying you start an adventure, explore. And I think there's an OSR quality, which I enjoy, about venturing into the unknown, slaying monsters, grabbing treasure, and so forth, mapping as you go. That's all part of the World Below RPG, but I think we need a little more than that, some more hooks. And one of the things I've noticed several story guides of the World Below don't do is populate their world. You see, the world below is a place absolutely filled with refugees, to the point the resources are scarce, I should say, and scared. They're trying to get away from you, but they're scarce more than scared. And what that means is the tunnels are filled with peoples of various origin and motivation. That doesn't mean everything is shoulder-to-shoulder gridlock. What it means is there are plenty of SGCs, our word for NPCs, story guide characters, that you can stop and interact with. This is vitally important, I think, to any story guide who's setting out with the World Below, or any other fantasy game for that matter. Too many, and I'll make a separate video on this, I imagine, have characters venturing out into the wild and then never interacting with NPCs because everything is one encounter, one monstrous encounter after the other. A trap, a monster, some treasure, and environmental hazards and so on. Those can all be fun, and some groups can live off of that stuff. But a lot of groups need those SGCs to interact with, to give their characters some grounding, give them a voice. So one of the first things you're going to do after your initial deadly encounter venturing in, and I would suggest the first thing that happens, one is that the tunnel is probably going to seal behind you, or at least become more precarious. Maybe some of the ground will fall away. You can still get back to your origin settlement, but it'll be more dangerous than leaving it. So maybe you need to find another route. Let's set up a few interesting caves on the way, shall we? And hell, we can really break it down to make this somewhat formulaic, in the sense that you have a choice of 3 routes. You can go the way where there's, let's say, a very narrow passage that seems absolutely lined with fungus. So it's very warm, and that you might be able to harvest some fresh food from there as well, which could really help with the resources on your trail, because after all, the World Below is something of a resource management game as well. But you also know that with fungus comes spores and certain other deadly creatures, such as fungal zombies and husks and other such things, mycelium hazards. Or there's another route. There's another route, and this takes you into a crystalline cave with acid and alkaline pools. Let's go for alkaline pools. They're very rarely used as much as acid pools. And here, the ground is more treacherous. You can get through it, and you may even be able to chip off some currency while you do. But if any one of you has ever watched Journey to the Centre of the Earth, you'll know that yanking out the greatest crystal is a good way to start a flood of something, and I would suggest that's some splashing alkaline. And the third route is probably the most ominous, because the third route should be the dark. You see, there's an elemental effect that exists in the world below just called the dark. And this is an unnatural darkness, because much of the world below is dark, while much of it is lit by luminescent lichen, sunflies fluttering about, and open flames. Sometimes darkness just swallows a place. It's almost a manifestation of the death that exists within the world below. You don't know what's going to be on the other side of that. That's not going to be very appealing. But here is where we have our first NPC encounters, our SGC encounters. As I was saying, very, very important. We could have it before the branch of 3. We could have a strange hermit character that you can hear giggling from behind one of the walls. This is where he has survived the chaos storms. He's been hiding in his own little hidey hole. Actually, giggling makes him sound too threatening. Let's have him asking for a trade. Let's say, they won't let me into the settlement of Telva's Hearth. Let's assume that's where you just left. But I've got all kinds of resources. I didn't get through all of my stocks during the calm season, so I'll feed you something through this crack in the earth if you feed something back to me, okay? And I can tell you about the way up ahead. Now, this can be interpreted as a threat. This person might be attacked and dragged through the wall. Obviously, characters going to interact with them however they wish, but this is a good way to set up a relationship. And if this person trusts them sufficiently to emerge from his hidey hole, he could even act as a guide or a talking head along the way. We can have him be a bit Gollum-like, a bit eccentric and weird, and then inevitably either betray them or become a fast friend. Not every single SGC needs to be an asshole. But this character could say, the way through the crystal caves is completely new. That didn't exist before the chaos storms opened up. The dark has always been there. The dark's been there as long as I've been living in these walls, and I never go in. Sometimes you hear crying from inside the dark. Crying and the scuttling of bugs. And I know none of that can be trusted. As for the fungal caves, that's where I get most of my food, but you have to do a deal with the myceli king that dwells within that cavern complex. You have to sacrifice something of yourself if you want to eat any of his descendants. And suddenly this world isn't just encounter caves. It's places that exist within a context. And depending on the way the characters go, as a story guide, you may well have different adventures planned for different paths, or you may have a central adventure that you can adapt to different environments. What the player character should be aiming to do through this tri-branch of beginnings is explore, map, find their way to another, let's say, guild house or settlement or community that's on the other side of one of these, so that they can then basically bring back a map, say this is a safe way we can set up a trade line or similar. And in the world below, quite often you are doing things like marking walls, making bridges, things that are going to make a path safer for other travellers. You don't have to limit these things to a single bowl-shaped cave. You go into the crystal caves, you pass through them, and where that was all quartz jutting out at sharp angles, and occasionally they're going to have rolled to avoid the pools of alkaline without getting scratched by the crystals as well. Next, There is a place where the crystals seem to be breathing, perhaps. The ground and the walls are undulating. And there's a party that has come from the other side, and they might be the perfect group to question, but all of a sudden they are attacked. Maybe they do something, and the crystals burst open, and an enormous bug lunges out and grabs half of them. The other half try to strike at this Scylla-like monster to retrieve their companions. Our player characters might intervene, at which point it turns out these characters, unlike our scuttly little friend, aren't to be trusted. They're raiders that are trying to head to your settlement because their settlement came off even worse in the Chaos Storm. Maybe you won't be able to find out what's on the other side of this tunnel. In short, we can build these caves into cavern complexes. And in the world below, a cave doesn't need to be a small room-sized cave. It can be mammoth. It can be huge in size, or it can be uncomfortably narrow and oppressive. It doesn't have to be round. It can have all kinds of branching off corridors and caves. If you are a big fan of maps, playing with maps in RPGs, the world below is probably ideal for you. Now, all of this is just one story hook. It isn't a whole campaign. I'm not going to take you all the way through from your original settlement to the one you want to end up at. This is where you start, and you will build on from there. And you want to constantly throw interesting and unexpected things in. Everything started expectantly. We're going to head out, we're going to face our first danger, the ground starts slipping away, we meet our first friend, and then we decide on which danger we want to face. Fungus, crystals, or dark. Let's say we go into the crystal caves, then we've got some natural hazards, pools of alkaline, sharp angles, the lure of treasure. We move into the next cave. There are more living people, but then they're suddenly attacked, and now you've got an enemy that's a giant monster. You have your first combat. Just like that, you've got scenes that follow each other and a place where characters can start demonstrating their abilities. Now, what I'm going to hold off on is doing the next two story hooks. I think those will be good fodder for the next couple of videos, or I will pace them out a little. So we'll do more World Below story hooks in the future. In the meantime, any of you who want to pick up a copy of the World Below, try and make it a print copy. Go on over to DriveThruRPG or go on over to BackerKit. I love it if people buy PDF copies as well, of course. But if you buy a print copy, remember, get in touch with me via MatthewDawkins.com and let me know that you've picked up a copy. Send me your order details if you can. I will then create a video of your request, and if I can't create it, I'll come back to you and explain why, but we'll work something out, I promise. And yeah, we will have some fun, I hope. And I hope, Hayley, that this has inspired you for your first World Below adventure, or indeed any of you people watching. Share this video around if you can, if you're a part of any RPG circles. I would love it if more people get into the World Below. As I say, it's a great source of joy, and I know a lot of people in my local area have been having a huge amount of fun with it, courtesy of the fact that I may have pushed them towards it. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.